Hi, this is Dr. Tom Rogers coming to you with a weekly podcast of the Common Sense MD. Today I have a really special guest, and I'm really pumped up about this. And this is kind of an spur-of-the-moment type deal, but this is Elliott. Now, she's a lifelong friend, college roommate of my wife, Jenny, good friend of mine, her husband, Mark Elliott, through the years, who I admire tremendously. And Ro was in town for a conference, for actually Jamie Winship's conference on identity. And, we work a lot with Jamie. We've done many podcasts with him, mostly Ben. But she came for this conference, which kind of excited us a lot because you tie this into health and your personal journey, and how you've come about your life journey is just so fascinating to me. When you stayed with us this weekend, I thought I have to do a podcast with her because it's going to be so useful for people in their health journey. We're all getting older, and we want to live a long, healthy life. That health span is what's important, not your lifespan, the health span. So I thought of her when I was reading Dr. Peter Attia's book on longevity, which I reviewed and I talk about all the time. He's a heavy hitter longevity expert. And I'm not going to spoil it for you, but if you look at the last chapter of that book, it's pretty amazing at what he went through in his own mental health journey. And as you know, you can't be a family doctor for 38 years and not realize that stress plays probably the most important role in how healthy you're going to be in your life. So when we sat down and talked this weekend, when I heard your journey, and I knew a little bit about it before, and you're really open to, which I love because you want to help people.
Yes.
I mean, the only reason I'm being a doctor at my age is just to really help people, because I really don't have to do this anymore. I just really enjoy it. And you've helped so many people through what you're doing. We're going to talk a little bit about Enneagrams. If anybody's heard that term, it's really kind of personality type that you're probably born with. But before you talk about that, and she's a coach for this, and she's helped so many people. But first, I want you to talk about kind of your own personal health journey, because it's really interesting to me treating all these autoimmune diseases like lupus, which you'll talk about. And I'm always searching as a doctor for the why. And that's one thing Jamie hit upon this weekend in the conference. Why? And that's, as a doctor, makes me probably a little bit different from most. It's, here's what you have, here's the medicine for it. I really want to know why you have that. And to do that, you got to reach pretty deep, and it's difficult. And that's why we a lot of times don't want to do it, but it's the right thing to do. Anyway, Elliott, it's so great to have you here. You're such a great friend and wise person. So tell me a little bit about what you went through with your health journey. It's fascinating to me.
It's so good to be here. I love you guys. And so I think about something you say, that your DNA loads the gun and your environment pulls the trigger.
Right.
So in my family of origin, there's a lot of autoimmune disease. And so didn't understand that 35 years ago, but my DNA was loaded for it. And I did a lot of things for the environment of that DNA that wasn't very good. Over-exercising, under-eating, anorexia. So I have 3 babies in a pretty short amount of time. And after the birth of the 3rd child, my health bottom fell out and didn't know what it was and put off going to the doctor. Long story is they divided, said that I had lupus. And back then, there was not alternative medicine. It was 35 years ago, when the internet. So the only solution was putting me on steroids. I had already been on steroids in my life, and I did not want to do that again. And it was just going to deal with the symptoms. And I actually looked at the symptoms of steroids and thought I'd rather live with my symptoms than those. And I'm very, very thankful for that. I feel like that was God's mercy. My in-laws, Dr. and Mrs. Elliott, offered to pay for vitamins for me. They have some friends that they thought could help me. And they said, are you open? Sure. I didn't have any other choice, actually. So that opened up my mind and my spirit to doing something different. And so I started on a health journey of supplements. I did tons of juicing, carrot juice, but it was green drinks, and I drank and drank that. I think I didn't know what I was doing. I was re-nourishing my body. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, there was a lot of pain inside me, and that was also being healed. And as you know, we're like a three-legged stool. If we don't deal with body, soul, and spirit, we're going to be wobbly. So that's been a long journey for me, and that is why I do what I do, because I believe we have to deal with body, soul, and spirit to flourish and to be all who God created us to be.
I agree 100%. You know, we kind of ignore the spiritual side of people. You know, doctors are hesitant to bring it up, but I always ask my patients, you know, tell me a little bit about your spiritual life, your beliefs. And, you know, I believe in healing. You know, I believe in prayer. I believe in hope. When somebody comes to me and they haven't been given any hope by the previous doctor, I go, look, there's always hope in anything. I mean, God's in control, and you just need to realize that. I think a lot. But so tell me how you got into the Enneagrams, a little bit about this. And now you're a counselor, you're a teacher, you're a coach, and I know you're helping a lot of people. You've helped 2 of my kids. I got another one I want you to work on. But anyway, tell me how you discovered the Enneagrams and kind of how they work. Because people are different. You know, one thing in my life that I've come to realize that I do not want to be a judgmental person. As a matter of fact, on my gravestone, I would rather have he was not judgmental about more than anything. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's up there. But so people are just different.
Yes.
And you know, we're so prejudiced, and we have so many ingrained thoughts that we're closed-minded a lot of times.
Yes.
And I think in medicine, it's one of the worst professions for that. It's unbelievable, really.
Yes.
But so tell me how you got into Enneagrams and kind of what they've done for you and what you've realized.
So to give hope, so from 30, I would say, to 50 was a long journey for me. At 50, I ran a half marathon. And from 50, I'm now 65. It's been the best 15 years of my life. So I felt 80 when I was 30. So I think what you're doing is getting to the root cause of people's health, can restore their health. And I'm a living testimony of that. But I think we also have to deal with the emotional side, trauma, things like that, because we hold these things in our bodies. There's a very good book that I think would be beneficial. It's called The Body Keeps a Score. And it actually, you'll see how the body, even within our cells, just what you were talking about the DNA, but we also hold trauma. And if we don't release trauma, which is stress, which causes inflammation.
Mm-hmm. Inflammation, the key to everything.
Everything.
You know, do you know of anybody that's around our age that has escaped any kind of trauma?
No.
There's no one.
No. Big T,
even
little
if you
t.
don't realize it.
Yes. And I think people think trauma, war, sudden death, but there's big T's and little t traumas that we deal with all our life. So for me, from 50 to when I discovered the Enneagram, 58, was a real growing journey for me of self-discovery. And once my kids left the house, I have 5 kids. We have a big age span. Our oldest is 40, and our youngest is 27. So when the 27-year-old left, I was 58. And I loved being a mom, loved being a wife, loved doing all the things, sports, all that I poured it into. And when they left, I was lost. It was like, now what? Should have thought of that before they left. And so I was on a journey, and the Enneagram intersected my life. Mm-hmm. And I started reading the Enneagram, and it actually started reading me. And all of a sudden, I saw myself. And when most people look at the Enneagram, we see our negative side first, and you kind of cringe. But you're seeing a behavior, a way of getting through life that is no longer working for you. And so because it so helped me move out of some very unhealthy behaviors and patterns, Mark was like, you love doing it. Why don't you become a coach? And I didn't even know it was a thing. And then I discovered it was a thing, and I became a coach. And that is, at 65, I never, ever would have dreamed I'd be doing something that lights me up inside like this.
That is truly amazing. I tell a lot of people that really the best years of your life should be 60s, 70s,
Yes,
80s, because
yes.
there's not as much pressure on you. You've kind of established your career. You've raised your family. You know, you're ready to kind of get to know yourself so you can really help other people. And
Yes.
that's exactly what you're doing.
Yes.
A lot of people just retire and just sit around, but you're actually helping people. And to me, the true calling or mission in life is to help other people.
Yes.
That's the way you help yourself. And it's so gratifying. For me as a doctor, I'm 68 years old. I'll never retire, because why would I?
Yep.
Until I just can't, which probably that point may come, but I hope it's when I'm 90 or older. And I'll still be practicing medicine, I hope.
Yeah.
But so the book, which I can't wait to read, I'm going to order it today. The Body Keeps Score. That's so true.
Yes.
That is so true with everybody. So why is the Enneagram so important why do you need to know your own personality type? And can you change it? How does it affect your health?
So all of us are born, we're unique, we're created by God, and we come out with a wiring. We come out with a essence, predisposition of a way of taking in information in the world. And what I love about the Enneagram, it is not a self-improvement course. It is a self-discovery course. And it's a tool, and it's not about behavior. It's not about what we do. It's about why we do. Mm-hmm. And it's why do I feel, why do I think, and why do I behave or do the things I'm doing. And what the Enneagram does, it gets underneath there, and it is motivation. That's why you can't type other people. You can't say, oh, you're this number, because you're looking at behavior, but you don't know the motivation. Two people can do the same thing, but what they're trying to get from that are two totally different things. So the Enneagram is a typing system, and there's 9 types, and it's a circle, and each type has a core fear, and they're different. So the core fear is what we, from childhood, have been trying not to let happen to us. And as a child, God made us really resilient. And we develop coping skills, whether it's a big trauma or the bully, the unkind words. We've developed defense mechanisms so we don't feel those core fears. And they work to get us through life, but then you come to an age, and it's much younger than we think, they start working against you. They no longer are, that self-protection is also now turning on you and will keep you from flourishing to be all who God wants you to be.
That's something Jamie talks a lot about.
Yes.
Is fear. He wrote the book on fear.
Yes.
And I love his take on it. We're only born with 2 basic fears, which is the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises.
Yeah.
All the other fears are developed.
Yep.
And I can believe that, having gone through life myself and having certain fears that I try to avoid at all cost. But you do reach a point in your life where you really kind of need to figure this out if you're to be your whole self.
Yes. And most people, what we don't realize, we're going through life on autopilot. We're doing what comes natural to us. But just because it's natural doesn't mean it's healthy.
Does that mean avoidance?
It can be, depending on some numbers. But autopilot is, we're just doing, this is what I always do, this is how I feel, and we're asleep to ourselves. What the Enneagram done is going to wake you up to yourself. It's going to help you see your beauty, but also what's called the shadow side. We have a true self and a false self. And what the Enneagram does, it helps bring those two things together to be wholehearted. But we have to look at the shadow side to really be able to let that be healed, let that be brought into the light so we can move wholeheartedly in this world.
I think so many diseases are caused by stress. I'm
Yes.
convinced of it. I've seen so many instances of like a wife taking care of her husband who has ALS or some bad chronic disease. And then after they pass away, boom, the wife gets cancer and she's gone in a year. I've seen that quite a few times. And a lot of times when people come to my office for treatment of autoimmune diseases, which we focus a lot on, a lot of it comes from what you eat, but setting off that inflammatory cascade and thereby disease. But a lot of times when I talk to them, I'll say, when did this occur? When did you first come down with these symptoms? And a lot of times, well, it was right after somebody was in a car accident, or I had the flu.
Yep.
And I've never felt the same since. And a lot of them come with brain fog. A lot of my patients are tired.
Yes.
Really think about it. I mean, people come to the doctor for one of two reasons, unless it's something simple like a cold or a physical, but they either come to me because they're tired or they hurt. And they both come from inflammation, really.
Yeah.
And there's usually a trigger, just like you're saying. We're all like a loaded gun. So what pulls the trigger? The environment.
Yes.
From toxins that we're exposed to what you're putting in your mouth, but also to stress that other people lay on you or you lay on yourself. And this Enneagram, which I'm fascinated by, I'm going to figure myself out, okay? Nobody's figuring me out, but I need to help.
You need to go on the journey, Tom.
I need to go on the journey.
You'll be a better doctor for it, I promise you.
Yeah, there's no
We
doubt.
will be better husbands, wives, friends, everything when we come from like Jamie talked about, our true identity. This is just a way to get to the original intent that God created us to be. And we all have all this stuff over it that keeps that from shining through.
I love that. Who are you?
Yes.
That's a good statement. It goes deep. I really think we were talking yesterday about this, and I think it should be taught in schools, don't
Yes,
you? I mean,
yes.
if these young people can figure what their personality type, and maybe their other peoples have different personality types, or be more acceptance, and they'll travel through their own journey knowing who they are and why they act a certain way. Because sometimes they don't know why they did that.
Yes. So just recently I worked with a 17-year-old turning 18-year-old, graduated from high school. And we worked all summer before he went to college. And he was really saying this needs to be taught to kids in high school. And I want to encourage anybody that's still raising kids, you have to do your work in your own number. That's the most important thing. Find out who you are. Find your number. Let that healing process happen. But it is so helpful in raising young kids. Teenagers, you can't really type somebody too early, but you can get some ideas, and then they will find their number. I wish I would have had this raising my 5 kids. Very different children. And you will it's a communication skill. That's why this works in workplaces. It works in marriages. It improves communication because we now understand not everybody receives information the way we do. So if you think about, there's 9 numbers, and if you think about each number having a different color lens, I'm looking through a yellow lens. You're looking through a purple lens. We're looking at the same thing, but it doesn't look the same. Mm-hmm. But if I can come around with compassion, I feel like the Enneagram, one of the best things it does is self-compassion and then compassionate understanding for other people. And what it does, it is a shortcut to respect. It is a very shortcut to respect to go, I don't have to understand everything about your number, but I can understand basics to respect that you and I are not taking in information in the same way. You and I don't communicate the same way. So much conflict is we are missing each other in communication. So if we are in conflict, what's underneath it? What happens? Stress. If I am moving out of my fears and that's all I'm doing all day long, what happens? Stress.
You get sick.
You get sick. And as we age, we want to do everything to boost ourselves so we can live the fullest life. But we have to go into our emotions. You have to feed your body well. You have to feed your spirits, and you have to feed your souls.
Very true. That's why I love that last chapter of Dr. Atiya's book, because he kind of had to find out why he was like this.
Yes.
He had some things that you would never have thought about him that he dealt with, and it made him a better person.
Yes.
And look at him now. I mean, he's so successful, helps a lot of people. People can kind of almost destroy themselves, don't you think?
Yes.
And they don't realize it.
And everybody, in every soul, I am now also working with another young man. He doesn't want to live the way he's living, but some people just don't know a way out. Mm-hmm. And another thing about the Enneagram, what I love about it, it's not static. There's movement in the Enneagram diagrams and how system. And if you think about it, it's like a GPS in your phone. So if I want to get from here to my sister-in-law's in Gray, I know kind of where she lives. I have to type in her address. It locates me where I am now, but it gives me steps how to get where I want to go.
That is an awesome correlation too.
And that's what the Enneagram does. And if you think about when you're driving, the rumble strips on the side of the road. So now we're waking up to ourselves. Now we have a picture of what health looks like in our emotions, what average and what unhealthy. We want to stay, if you want to stay out of stress and out of injuring yourself, it's the unhealth. But so many people, when I'm walking with them, they read that and they go, oh, I'm in unhealth. And we think unhealth is like in the ditch. It's not. It will lead to the ditch. But it's not necessarily you're doing super harmful things. You're doing harmful emotional things to yourself. So this GPS, you're driving along the road, now you're awake. Now you know more who you are. You can identify those stressors, those fears in real time. And instead of veering off course, but then there's like that rumble sprint that wakes you up. Have you ever done that, falling asleep?
Oh,
and
yeah.
then you hit it and you go,
last week driving to Knoxville.
Yeah. And now you're really, really awake. That's what the Enneagram's doing. It's just waking us up. And it's helping us go on a course to health.
You know, I think relationships are so important
Yes.
for your health. I mean, we're not meant to be isolated creatures.
No.
Relationships are one of the most important things you can do for your health. And you can not only be destroying yourself, you can destroy the others around you, especially like your marriage or your relationship with your kids. It's amazing how many fathers, I was reading on Father's Day, how many fathers have they're estranged from their children. 25% of them. I mean,
Yes.
that shocked me.
Yes. Oh,
and
no.
it's because of they don't know themselves, and it has an effect on their wives or their husbands or their children. So, you know, for relationships, if you can kind of go through this and know yourself, you're going to get along better with your spouse. You're going to understand why they do that.
And it fine-tunes it. And here's another really amazing place we have seen this in our family. We have 5 kids. So now 4 of the 5 are married. That's a lot of adults, and that's a lot of personality. Mm-hmm. Well, the people who married into our family, our kids, we didn't know them before. They didn't grow up with them. They met them in adulthood. So we didn't raise them. They don't know us really, and we don't know them. The Enneagram is so helpful, especially with mother-in-laws and daughter-in-laws.
So on Thanksgiving, you get together and you talk about it with everybody? Or how do you approach that?
We have had, let me just say, in general, the girls like it more than the guys. But everybody's interested in it. I try not to Enneagram my family to death. They wouldn't appreciate that. But they have all their own knowledge of it and are more self-aware of themselves. But what it has helped is the new sister-in-law coming in is maybe very different than my firstborn daughter, who's a really strong, wonderful young lady. Well, that can be intimidating to somebody else. And now, because they understand the way they're wired, they maybe don't take something so personally. Mm-hmm. So it's every stage of our life. This has benefit. And like you, Tom, I have been brokenhearted in the number of families. You think you get your kids through high school. Okay, good. That was the hardest part. Actually, this transition's very hard. It's hard for mothers. It's hard for fathers. And as the new family is blending, that stress, I have friends who part of the family aren't speaking to each other. I'm not going to come to Thanksgiving if they're there. And
especially in today's world, the political divisions, and it makes it worse.
It makes it worse. And if we can have that compassionate understanding and just respect, if I understand how, for instance, there's 9 types, 1 through 9, and like a 9 is a peacemaker. They do not like conflict. They will avoid conflict like it's the plague. Well, if I understand that person doesn't like conflict, I will interact with them and maybe share something that has to be maybe hard in a way that they can receive it. There's another number, an 8, that's a challenger. Well, they'll just come out and say straight up what they believe and what they feel, and you can talk to them that way, and they're not offended.
And they don't care what people think of them.
They don't.
Right?
And it's a marvelous thing. But if they talk to people the way they want to be talked to, that doesn't work well. And so you can see how we just start missing each other.
And so you're not really trying to typecast these people.
No.
You're just trying to understand them. I think that's a major point.
This is my favorite when people say, oh, I don't do those personality tests because I don't want to be put in a box. And really what I tell them is, you're already living in a box. This gets you out of the box.
Love that.
Out of the box. I didn't even think that.
Out of the box. I love that. That's a great statement.
It's getting us out of our box into who we're created to be.
It has such profound impacts on your health and your happiness. I mean, especially as you get older, you want to be happy. You want to enjoy the fruits of your labor.
Yes.
Your family. You know, it's so important to be close to your family.
Yes.
You know, you're fortunate. You have a great family. I'm fortunate. I have a great family, more because of Jenny, way more because of her than me. But, and men are just different than women too. I tell all my patients, women are smarter than men, and they're just way more intuitive. I mean, a lot of the health depends on the women because they drag their husbands in to see me.
Yes.
And men are not as open as women.
Yes.
And they should be, because a lot of the stuff you internalize, it turns into disease.
Yes, it does.
I think.
And it's interesting because even these young men that I'm working with, they're not threatened by this. I think counseling by a professional is very, 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 very important. I encourage everybody. Everybody should have a good counselor.
I agree 100%.
But
it's not a weakness. It's a strength.
It's a strength. It takes courage. It takes courage to go and sit and get well. But sometimes somebody is not ready for counseling. They won't go. And what I feel like is I can crack the door. And then they will go on and do the deeper work, because Enneagram is not a substitute for counseling. It is not. It is part of a journey that can lead you to wellness. But some people really need to go on and deal with a mental health professional for the trauma that they have dealt with. But it seems to be a safe space that I've been able to work with some men whose wives wouldn't get, he wouldn't go to counseling, but he sat with us and we did some work. So it's for everybody. And let me just say, there is a book that I highly recommend if you've never done the work, it's called The Road Back to You. Mm-hmm. And it's like by Ian Cron and Suzanne Stabile. It's like the primer. You can just go and read. And the best thing to do is to read. Go and read. Don't get on the internet and look at a meme. And I love the popularity of the Enneagram has really grown, which is awesome. Mm-hmm. The downside of it is it can become the topic of a cocktail party. So what number are you? Oh, you must be this. Or the memes that you see on Instagram. That's a typecast. That's not a true typing. So I think it's good and bad all at the same time. Mm-hmm. It's a deep, deep, deep work. And it's worth the journey to go on it, to become all who God. We are all going to be happy if we're flourishing. And if our physical health isn't flourishing, you could have all the gifts in the world, but if you're so sick and you can't get out of bed, what good is that?
I agree with you.
Or you could have all the physical. Tom, you could get somebody to feel so well physically, but they are still wounded inside. They can't go out and be a gift to the world either. Yeah. It's all of it together. And we used to separate all this stuff out, but it's really, if we can all do it together, we're all going to be better in society.
I agree with you 100%. Mental health is so important. And people look at it, well, I'm having to see a therapist. That's a weakness. No, it's a strength.
Yes.
And getting to know yourself.
Yes.
That's why this conference this weekend on your true identity is so important. What is the problem?
Yes.
Question things.
The why, not what we do, why. And it really is fear. And each number has its own fear. And I can go around the circle and do it if you want, or just read about it. But if we are driven by fear, it never leads us to good places. And so if I understand, I'll just say for me, I'm a 2. We're called the helpers. My core fear is being unloved, unwanted, worthless. And so if I have a fear that I will not be loved, what I've done most of my life is work myself to have people need me. If you need me, then you're going to want me. I didn't know how to separate that I could be loved for who I was, not for what I was doing for people.
That is so powerful.
Yes. And each number has a different fear that drives that. And then the behavior is not healthy because we're trying out of fear to get something that, for me and you, that God feels first and foremost. And then we don't have to get it from other people. We don't have to, for one, that need for perfection and for everything to be right. Well, when we're doing that, if we understand we're already made right with God, mm-hmm. then we can let go of it, and then we're not making ourselves perfect in the world around us in an unhealthy way.
I understand. And you don't have to achieve. It's not what you do in life. It's really more who you are. So
like a 3, their thing is achievement. If their fear, if I don't achieve, if I fail, that's the worst thing. Now, everybody doesn't like to fail, but when I'm saying these core fears, these are so deep. Everybody deals with similar fears, but when you understand this thing, core fear that drives you, a 6 wants security, guidance. If they don't feel secure, they will go out and start doing things to make their world feel secure.
So if they realize this, they kind of know what type they are.
Yes.
They can look at that, and their journey will be much more insightful,
yes.
helpful. So when you went through this process, did you feel yourself, you said you had lupus, did you feel yourself healing physically?
Well, honestly, my physical healing came before this came across my path. But why I had lupus, I was healing a lot of emotional pain. And I believe with everything in me, Tom, and it was just God's grace because I didn't really know what I was doing. He was leading me in this, that if the emotional trauma was not being released from my body, if I still held that in there, no matter what I nourished it, I wasn't going to be fully well. I believe that it was the nourishment of my body, the supplements, the juicing, the change of diet, drinking water, not being dehydrated. I was so dehydrated.
And you were actually over-exercising.
I was over-exercising.
There's a group of people, and it seems to me in my practice, it's always women in their 40s that they work out more than an NBA professional basketball player. What they're doing is creating a lot of inflammation. They don't recover. They're unhealthy. They think they're doing the right thing, but they're overdoing it.
Somebody told me people who run obsessively like I used to are running from something. And I used to laugh, and then I realized I was running from myself.
That is so, because I remember in college you were one of the first long distance runners that just went out for running.
That's 6 miles. Let's just do that for fun. That was minimum. 6 miles was minimum.
Yeah.
But I didn't really realize I was running from myself. And then and here's the gift of my body said, enough. We're not going to do this anymore. And if it didn't break down on me, it became the gift because I no longer could push myself. And it made me stop, and it made me course correct. So for that, if people can look at those moments, can actually be a gift. Because our bodies, our emotions, when that guy ended up in the hospital, it was his body's gift to him saying, enough is enough.
Very insightful. I love your journey. I just love talking to you and see how much you've grown, over the years since high school. It's just incredible what you're doing. I love the fact that you came here, spent the weekend with us, and we had many great conversations with our family. You've helped our kids so much. It's just phenomenal. So you're doing this. I know you don't probably need a lot more business, but if somebody really wanted you to be their coach for an Enneagram, is that available?
Oh yeah, I love it. I named my Enneagram business Imago Dei, which means the image of God. And that is my heart, is to help people go on a journey to be all who God created them to be. The original identity, when he thought about you, when he created us, what he had in our heart. And we live in a broken world, and it gets robbed. Some direct harm and a lot of indirect harm. And we can go on a journey to go and rediscover, probably for the first time, who we really are. So I don't have a website or anything yet, but you can put my email, and you can contact me by email, and I do it on Zoom. I do a lot in person in Nashville. I live in Nashville, the Nashville area, but I also can do it by Zoom. And I love it. It's wonderful.
It's
a
amazing
joy.
what you're doing. Again, I begged her to come on this podcast. She is not coming on here. Call me. No, she doesn't.
No.
But she may be available for a few people. Who knows? But it's so good having you on this podcast. Thank you. What we'll try to do is maybe do another one, months down the road. I'm certainly going to do the thing myself. I'm going to read the books.
Okay.
I'm going to try to figure myself out, and we'll continue this conversation. Ro Elliott, thank you so much. I'm just so pleased. This is one of the best podcasts I've ever had. It really is, and I've been doing this for many years. So this is so insightful for me, and I hope it'll light a kind of a light bulb in yourself where you can kind of start thinking about how your mental health and your personality type can relate to your own health and your happiness. So I'm going to put your email address
Okay.
up here, so if people want to contact you, they can. So I hope this is helpful. I love doing this. I love talking about it, and I hope you listen. Thank you, and Ro, we'll see you around, I'm
Yeah.
sure, and we'll
Yes.
see you all next week. Thank you so much for listening.